Welcome everyone to our daily Forex market analysis call, and this is for trading on February 28th, 2018. Just a quick disclaimer before we get started. This is for educational purposes only. Trading is a risky business, so please be careful with your money. To start off with, as usual, we'll take a look at our calendar here. So the important things that happened here, we had Fed Chair Powell testifying, and we saw a lot of back and forth on that. US dollar, it was positive for the US dollar overall. The data didn't come out that positive, so we did have a back and forth, but overall this was good for the US dollar, and we saw the Aussie trade, even that we were in, so all the US crosses pushed lower because US dollar got better, and then consumer confidence number came in better. All right, so today going into, or tomorrow going into our Wednesday.
150 billion yen of paper with maturity 1 year to 3 year, 330 billion yen of JGBs with maturity 3 year to 5 year, 190 billion yen worth of JGBs with a maturity of 10 to 25 years, and 70 billion JGBs worth.
Sorry, my audio feed there just kicked in. Let me just take that off. Here we go. Sorry about that. So that's the audio feed. I do recommend everybody get an audio feed and have or keep an audio feed running while we are trading. Okay, so going into Wednesday here in our London session, we have some economic barometer here for Swiss franc. And then we have CPI flash estimate and core CPI flash estimate. So when there isn't a lot of important data, even the non-important data can move the market. So just keep that in mind, but nothing too earth-shattering there. Going into US session, we do have preliminary GDP numbers, which will be important. And even this Chicago PMI and pending home sales numbers will be important here. Crude oil inventories will be important both for the US and Canadian dollars, so we do need to keep an eye on that. And then in the Asian session, we have private capital expenditure for Australia, which will have an impact on Australian dollar. So not a ton of like critical data tomorrow, a couple of pieces of important data, but nothing awfully critical there. So let's go on to our chart. So it looks like our trade is doing okay. This may be a good time to move the trade into break-even +2 now. So just the rule of thumb that I follow is once we have 20 pips in the trade, it's a good idea to move it to break-even just in case we get volatility. There's no point in taking a loss after we have profit in the trade. So let's start from the top here. Euro US dollar, yesterday we had talked about how if price stays below 123.50, we were looking for a drop. So we got that drop. So this is a very nice bearish candle close. So now do keep in mind that we are coming into support now. This is where price had reacted previously, and we are back into those levels. So with this one, our daily candle close is bearish, which means the bias is bearish. However, we could see a push into the 122.80 level, bottom of these here, this support and resistance, and then a drop from there. So looking at our one, but the bias is to the downside, and my target is a 121.60-ish level, this back into this pin here. So this is where we are. We did have a nice double top and then a big drop. Now we could get a move back into this support and resistance level, and this I think will be a nice level to look for a potential short. So price comes like this and then drops from there. So that's what I'm looking for. Price to go test the 122.80 level and then give us a reversal signal from there, gives a short signal. Now it may not go all the way up there. It could get stuck in this 122.66 area, which is also our pivot point area. So that's another sort of a pullback level. But overall though, price is holding low and looks like it may do another drop. So my bias for euro dollar is to the downside. Pound dollar here, we had talked about this daily pin bar. I really do like daily pin bars, and I also like 1 hourly pin bars. As we can see, this one played out quite nicely here. it pulled back into this 39.92-ish level and then gave us a drop. So we were bearish yesterday. We got that drop, and I am still bearish on this. So pound dollar and hence our pound yen trade, because a lot of times if the currency is weak, the yen cross tends to move a little bit bigger or have a bigger move than the currency itself. So in this case, pound dollar, I'm bearish on this. My outlook is, my bias is to the downside, and the target here would be 137.60 level, the bottom of this pin. In this case, we could get a pullback either into this level here, 139.37 level. So basically, we could get a pullback like this, retest of this previous level, and then it should drop, giving us a double top, or it could just go into this pivot point and then drop from there. So those are the two options. But right now, it looks like it is holding here, so the bias still stays to the downside and looks like it could drop. So we may just get one of these and then the drop. So the first target would be the bottom of today, and also this previous bottom here, which is 138.50-ish level. So 138.50 will be the first target. 137.60 will be the second target. The bias is to the downside. Aussie dollar here. Aussie, we had talked about the bias for outlook, or the bias for Aussie was to the downside. And this was a trade that I was in. However, I closed this trade out at break even prior to the news, because I usually don't trade the New York session and there was news coming out. Otherwise, I would have let it run. But overall, we were looking at price dropping because there was this large pin here. So now we did get that drop, and the bias is still to the downside. So now I am looking for a potential. So we may not get this big a pullback. We may only get a pullback back into 7,800, 0.7800, and then a drop. But overall, the bias is to the downside here. First target would be 77.50 level, and then second target would be 77.20 level. So looking for price to drop for Aussie dollar here. And as we can see, prices holding low. So we may get, I'm looking for another move to the downside here. Bias still remains to the downside. Same thing with New Zealand dollar here. We had similar formation on New Zealand dollar, and we were looking for a drop. So we got that drop. Now looking for a further move to the downside. So 7,200 is the first target. Second target would be 71.80. And then we could potentially go lower into 71.40 level. So overall, my bias is to the downside. 71.80 will be the first target. 71.40 will be the second target to the downside. And if you take a look at it, this is the type of move I am looking for. Price pulls back into the pivot point and then drops. Or we could get a pullback into this 72.85 level. So price has a higher pullback, retest this previous support that can act as resistance, and then a drop from there. So basically looking for price to drop further for New Zealand dollar. Dollar CAD here, we finally get a close above this pin. Very, very bullish candle close here. The next target is to the upside, and I'm looking for price to go into 128.34 level. Again, looking for a pullback in the opposite direction here. So in this case, I'm looking for price to pull back into this pivot point level, hold the pivot, and then go higher. So as we can see how this was a very nice pivot point trade. We had nice pattern above the pivot point, and price just held above the pivot point and just continued above the pivot point. So looking for something like that, pull back into the pivot point, and then a continuation higher for dollar CAD. So dollar CAD is bullish. Euro Swiss franc, that's a very solid candle close to the downside. So I'm looking for price to drop further into 1.1450 level. That will be the first target. And second target would be 1.1380 level. So that's the second target to the downside. Overall, we have a bearish engulfing candle close. So I'm looking for a further drop. First target 1.1450, second target 1.1380 level. Pound Swiss franc here, bearish candle close here as well, looking for price to drop further back into this previous support and resistance level at 129.90 level. So just looking for further move to the downside. So bias for pound Swiss is also to the downside. Dollar Swiss franc here, this one is into the resistance level now. So US dollar was bullish today. However, the Swiss crosses were bearish, which means Swiss franc was bullish, or Swiss franc was strong. As a result, the Swiss crosses were down. So with this one, I am not seeing this. As long as the price stays below 9,400, I'm still seeing this as a bearish move. So I'm looking for price to drop here, go back towards the bottom of the range. So 93.20 will be the target for dollar Swiss franc. The risk will be that US dollar gets very strong and then price could push up higher. So 9,400, 0.9400 would be the key level that we would have to watch. So as long as price stays below that, I'm looking for a further drop for dollar Swiss franc. Pound dollar, okay, so this is a trade that we are in, close to our, not too far, so we are about 15 pips away from our profit target. Make sure, just a reminder that everybody's moved their stops in this. There's no point in, having the price pull back on us. Basically, looking at this here, we are slowly, steadily moving to the downside. So my bias is to the downside. So the candle close here is neutral to bearish, but overall we are in a downtrend here, starting with this bearish pin bar. We have been in this downtrend. So with this one, I'm looking for a further drop. First target was 148.80 level. Second target, 14800 level, so which is the bottom of this pin bar here. 148.00. So the bias is to the downside, and currently this is the 149.50 level we've been holding. So the take profit target is at 148.85. So just keep an eye on that, but the bias is to the downside. Euro yen, similar here. We had a nice bearish candle close here, looking for price to drop. So the first target is 131.00, which is pretty much where the price is right now. Second target is 130.50. So that would be the second target to the downside. The bias is to the downside. That's a very nice bearish candle close and looking for a continuation. So bias is to the downside. Aussie yen as well. That's a very nice pullback into the pivot point level. And this is the type of thing that we want to keep an eye on. So price dropped, pulled back here, retested this level, retested the same level, pivot point, and a drop. But looking at the daily candle close, a very nice bearish candle close. And I'm looking for a drop here into 83.30 level and then 82.50 to the downside. So bias is also bearish for Aussie dollar here. Dollar yen, same thing here. So with this one, we did have a bullish candle close, but this one is more sideways at the moment. So as long as price stays below 107.80, I am looking for price to drop. Now, US dollar, because it was strong today, this one will have a bit of a challenge with the yen. So when the yen is strong and the dollar is strong, it will tend to go sideways. But right now, the yen looks like the yen is strong, so all the yen crosses are dropping, and US dollar tends to drop. Dollar yen tends to drop with that as well. Overall, though, this one has been bearish for quite some time, and now we have a lower high. So I'm looking for price to drop in this. The target here would be 106.80 level. So bias is with this one, my bias is neutral because we do have a bullish body here with a large pin, so which makes it neutral. So bullish to neutral, but it could still drop if all the other yen crosses drop. CAD yen, bearish candle close here, looking for a further drop. First target would be 83.70-ish level. Second target, 83.20. So CAD yen is bearish as well, and we saw a nice drop on that over the last couple of days. So this is bearish New Zealand dollar, last one here, that's a very nice engulfing bearish candle close, looking for further drop. So first target would be the bottom of this pin, which is 77.30 level. And then we could see 76.93. So let's say about 7,700. So looking for a drop in New Zealand yen as well. All right, so that's all I have. Any questions or anything to add? If not, we will call it a wrap. You guys have a wonderful evening, and I will see you in the London session at 3 a.m. Eastern. Bye for now.